Hey everyone, welcome back to Life on a Mission podcast. I got a special guest with me today. He's a good friend of mine, and we go to church together. And he is the social media coordinator or director of Southeast Christian Church, and it's my friend Blaine Scinta. Blaine, thanks for being on today.
Yeah, glad to be here, man.
Blaine, just go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about yourself a little bit more, but then we'll kind of dive into what you do.
My name is Blaine, and I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I've lived here my whole life, and really became a Christ follower in 2011. That's when my life changed forever, and I've been following Jesus ever since, and he's radically changed my life in ways that I could have never deemed possible. But I've been working in the media industry, specifically with social media, with brands. And up to now at church for the past about 2, almost 3 years. And, it's taught me a lot because, when you work with, before I came to Southeast, I learned a lot about how different brands function, their goals, just their overall mission and what they want to accomplish. And honestly, that helped me grow a lot because I had to get to know these brands before I was ever able to work with them. And I think that's something that is really important to always take note of is I always have to tell myself that, I'm telling someone else's story. And so to me, that's always been something that's been pretty powerful. Went to high school here in Louisville, went to Trinity High School. And after Trinity, I went to U of L, where I got a degree in physics and math. And somehow I wound up at a church. So I guess God has a sense of humor.
There you go.
But that's just a little bit, I guess. We could,
Cool.
On a broad level. So
We're the generation that kind of grew up. We had the chance in our childhood to not really have social media involved in our lives. But then as we got older, everyone eventually got integrated into having a Facebook or an Instagram or a Twitter or Snapchat or something like that.
Yeah.
Have you seen a difference in your church atmosphere since social media has come about?
Oh, definitely. Our outreach for a church our size, tens and tens and tens of thousands of people. I don't want to say quite hundreds of thousands of people just yet. Social media specifically. I mean,
Right.
from a mission standpoint, it is definitely hundreds of thousands of people. But from a specific social media platform perspective, we've had the opportunity to reach so many people. I mean, we get messages, just generic messages through social media. Of people just thanking us for being able to bring that platform to them. They live in New York, they live in Georgia, they live in North Dakota, somewhere we'd never guess. And they say, we are so glad we're able to connect with the church on that level. And it makes us happy because, we of course know where social media has been and where it is now. And we have a vision for where we want to go. And it makes us excited because, we're thinking, wow, we're going to be able to connect people so much more. If this is what it is now, who's to say what it's going to be like in 2 years, when we're able to bring the gospel to that many more people. So we do something small. You could argue you'd say it's something big too, but we do something as simple as a how can we pray for you post. And the stories that come out of that are just unreal.
Do you have a team that kind of filters through all of those?
No, I do it.
You do it?
Typically what we do is, I'll post it and respond to each one specifically based on what it is. We cut the prayers out on a piece of paper, and then we pin them on a board, and then people that work at the church and in the communications department specifically will walk by, pick one off, pray for that person throughout the week.
Nice.
Just simple things like that. It's allowed us to reach such a broad spectrum that's outside the walls of the church.
Yeah.
And so,
do you have any guidelines that you have to follow when conducting the social media of Southeast?
Yeah, I think anybody who runs social media for a church or a company, an organization, nonprofit, you fill in the blank, whatever that is, you got to be you. You got to be yourself. I think it's so easy. Say people in my position, right? So I work with an amazing team, phenomenal team, a communications team in Southeast, unreal. We have a graphic design team and a video team, and they all have their and a content team, and we all have our own competencies and what we're really good at, and they all bring so much to the table that I'm able to utilize. And one of the biggest things that I think is so important is we can't pretend to be another church.
Yeah.
I think what we run into is like from social media standpoint, we get into this world of like comparing our lives to other people's and comparing, something as simple as our Instagram feed to someone else's, and it's like, and we try to be other people, but but in the process of trying to be other people, we end up forgetting, or not necessarily forgetting, but neglecting who we are and what we bring to the table, because God brings such a unique perspective to each person in each church.
Right.
And I think, we can't be a you fill in the blank church. We're Southeast. We've got to treat social media in a way that helps grow the mission and bring the gospel to people and grow that aspect of our church.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I have to remind myself of that daily, because while social media is used to connect so many people with Jesus with what we do, it's so easy for the enemy to kind of come in and tell lies and say, well, you need to actually do this. You need to be more like these people. They're doing it better.
Kind of makes you want to show a not truthful self of like who you guys are almost, or not even like that. It's I guess with me personally, or like with what I see with our generation at least, you see a lot of people posting a lot of the best parts of their life, and sometimes it can end up turning into some facade to where, a lot of the times people want you to get the impression that maybe they have all of the answers or all their life together or something like that, when in truth, like when they're not posting pictures of themselves at the beach, they're might be having a hard time with whatever's going on in their life, and they're not allowing you to see that, and then that kind of hurts them even more when they see somebody else living a good life as well, but then it makes them feel competitive almost.
Yeah, right? No, that's a good point, because we can't. The moment you start to get into that world of just comparing your life and putting on sort of that fake image, it removes that important, like, vital sense of authenticity that we need to have in order for not just for our relationship with other humans, but like our relationship with Jesus. Like, there needs to be that level of authenticity where we're able to be honest and vulnerable. And I think if we spend so much time putting on that image, that kind of fake image, it's really easy for that to just kind of go away. So.
What is the main message that you're trying to communicate through Southeast social media as far as reaching out to the lost or to anybody that doesn't know, who the church is?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, well, first and foremost, our goal is to take our platform, to take our mission statement, right? The mission statement for our church is to connect people with Jesus and one another. And I think ultimately that's like the first tier, if you will, of our calling, right? Is to make disciples that make disciples that make disciples. And connecting people with Jesus and one another is the foundation of that. And bringing that to social media requires a lot of different processes, right? So we have 30, we have multiple ministries. I mean, around 30 or so ministries at the church. Yeah. And so, it's a matter of how can we take what's going on at the church and connect it with the people. Like, let people know what's going on at Southeast. What's life at Southeast Life Park? How will I feel at home there? Because, Southeast isn't, it's not the church home for everybody. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. I think, I always tell people, like, Southeast is not your home. Cool. Find a church that loves Jesus. That can be, that you feel at home, that's your church home. Yeah. Where God can use you. And I think for us specifically, it's taking all of this stuff that goes on at Southeast, which is tons of stuff. You can imagine. I mean, it's top 10 largest church in America. It's got tons of stuff going on at it. Yeah. How can we take that and then just show that to not only the congregation, but put meaningful, intentional, encouraging content out there to keep people engaged? Because here's the thing: people go to church on Sundays, they wake up, probably make breakfast, whatever, get in the car, on the car with the family, go to church, they'll sit down, they'll stand up for worship, they'll raise their hands during worship, they'll listen to Kyle or Dave's message, and they'll nod up and down. But yes, that's great. They'll probably talk about it on the way home. They get home that afternoon, they'll hang out around the family. Their spiritual high at church was already kind of started to go down. Yeah, they're already trying to figure out, where they're going to eat or, you're already thinking about the stresses of tomorrow's meetings. And, you're already thinking about life. And by the time you go to bed, you're already kind of, if somebody asked you, things about the sermon, or you would probably have to think kind of hard to answer the questions. Not for everybody, but typically. But the question that we have to ask ourselves is, during the Monday through Saturday, how are we able to engage people to where we're helping their walk with Jesus, but at the same time plug them in and keep them engaged in what's going on at the church?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people out there, who might have a good life whose lives might look good on social media,
right?
But they're longing for community. They long for a spiritual mentor. They're longing for that wall that they felt that to be knocked down.
Yeah.
And we have to ask ourselves every day, how can we engage people?
Yeah.
Bring the gospel to them through that platform.
Do you find it difficult that that it's a mega church that you're working with, or does that have any?
Well, I think I definitely don't find it. Every church has its own obstacles.
Right.
A big church is going to have obstacles, and a small church is going to have obstacles. That's just the ministry. The ministry is you've got to be. Ministry is it's a busy. It's a busy industry, and
it even depends on like where you are too in the world as well. Like it doesn't even matter the size. Like sometimes you could be a big church in California and you have to deal with the culture out there. You could be a church in Europe and you have to deal with that culture. And
it's very interesting. I love talking to the leaders at the church because they kind of remind. I think it's always important to know where you come from, and talking to them over time. I've started to learn more and more about where Southeast has come from and how it has evolved where it is today, and it's incredible that it has become the positive impact that it's been. But specifically, I spend I kind of shifted focus from I've got this, the image of this church in my hands from a social media standpoint to how can I help that image succeed? How can I help that mission statement succeed, and not necessarily the pressure that comes along with it? There's a lot of men at that church that grow me and stretch me spiritually, and and when it comes to being a mega church, I find joy, lots of joy, that surpasses any amount of stress in knowing that what I do is possibly helping people at the right moment, at the right time, when they are they're feeling as low as they can get.
Yeah.
Like the way I picture it is like when we put content out there that we spend tons of time on, that the video team spends tons of time on, the graphic design team spends tons of time on, whatever it might be. I see it as the moment that went out, that just prevented somebody from possibly falling off and being in the stop in the church.
Do you ever worry that you're always trying to send a positive message, but with a church like Southeast, they're always under the eyes of a lot of scrutiny and everything like that? Do you ever find yourself kind of thinking about if somebody could take anything the wrong way from social media?
Oh, definitely. I think we have our like every big church or something. You have a handful of people who don't agree, right?
And I only ask that too because it's like it does. It's not even that it's justified or anything. It's just that sometimes people want to just find something wrong with a certain situation, and then what better way instead of actually being in the building than to try to look at it from the outside and see what they can find. So it's like it's not even that they're right. It's just that that's what happens sometimes.
Well, with a big church, you've got to be heard.
Yeah,
and that's a natural thing. And the biggest thing that we can do, here's the thing: we don't. Luckily, we don't have the issue of big Facebook debates. You see that. You see that a lot, right? You see somebody, your friend posts something on Facebook, and all of a sudden you see. It's funny. You see an article on Facebook, and the first thing you always look for is the comment number.
Oh yeah.
And you look at 49 comments, and it was posted 10 minutes ago. I'm not getting that. You know what I mean?
I think it's amazing how people will think that they'll solve an entire situation by one comment on Facebook, like they're the ones that have the answer. But yeah.
But we have a process set in place to graciously take care of those situations, right? We don't want to. The last thing we ever want to do is lash back out at somebody and start some huge debate. We don't know what that person's going through. That person, we don't know what life they grew up with. We don't know what circumstances they're in. We don't know where they come from. So, anytime somebody ever comes, even this is how I handle it personally too. If somebody comes at me and you got something heated, they're heated about something spiritually. Yeah. They're heated that there are these people called Christians that try to pretend like the world's sunshine and rainbows. They're heated about you don't know where that person's come from. You've got to approach that person through love and grace, and honestly, I think the way to handle any of those situations is the exact way that Jesus handled all the situations you see in Scripture, where he had to approach a wild man, had to calm people who were heated towards him.
He had a level head about everything.
He had a level head, and I think, and again, it all goes right back to where you came from. When I think about like the leaders of the church, they model that for me.
Yeah.
I think what's so important is a church's leaders are vital to that mission statement going forward, right? Because if you have poor leadership, then how is that mission statement even going to mean anything? Really? Yeah. And I think ultimately, trying to keep that boldness when you're speaking and that grace, because the grace, if the grace isn't the foundation for how you're speaking, then what you're saying doesn't really matter. Right. And we have to carry that into social media as well. But we deal with things accordingly. Unfortunately, we don't. One of the amazing things I love about being in the church that I'm at is no church is perfect. No church ever will be perfect. One person's ever been perfect. No one person ever will be perfect. But one of the things that I love about working at Southeast is that our church is known for our pastors just how humble they are. Humility, and that means so much to me because specifically and I see this in all the pastors in the church. When they walk into a room, they automatically make themselves a small person. Yeah. Like when you see someone that does that, it says something to you. It really does because they can easily come in with that kind of that
high and mighty attitude.
Yeah, high and mighty. Yeah. I speak to a congregation of 24,000 people every week, and you don't listen to me. Yeah, they could easily have that mentality. They don't. And
is that the number of attendance at our church?
Yeah. So actually, interesting enough, we just wrapped up a series over the summer called Out the Movies. Yeah, it was incredible, unbelievable.
I'm kind of sad that it wasn't able to be posted on YouTube because I wanted to recommend it to a lot of my friends, but there's it's copyright.
Yeah. So we had to. It's funny you say that. So we had a series called Out the Movies to give you kind of a bird's eye view of what this series looked like. Dave took a series of movies over a span of 5 weeks and took each movie each week and showed how it can what happened in that movie and paralleled it with meaning of scripture, a certain part of scripture, and it was extremely impactful in a positive way because typically for any church. Period. Their lowest attendance months are June and July. It's summer. People are on vacation. Right. It's just natural. It's not like people are somehow not Christians in June and July. People are gone. Yeah. Well, so Dave decides to start this series, and it was incredible. Yeah. We saw a spike of thousands of people. I think seriously. I don't want to put a specific number on it because I don't know the specific numbers, but I do know that by the last week we did the series, we had an increase of 6,000 people.
Good Lord.
So that means that what that tells me is that 6,000 people came to church that more than likely would not have come otherwise, and were able to hear the name of Jesus, hear who Jesus is because of it. And so, just things like that. So with that though, these movies that we use, they have copyright laws. We can't use.
Can you name which movies they were?
I don't. For the sake of the podcast, I don't know if I should say the name of it.
Okay.
On behalf of the church, I just don't know.
No worries.
Yeah, for copyright. But we were able to use those movies to really connect people, cool. and that was incredible for me being able to see that. But, we weren't able to post those because of that, but it was really cool. People understood. We had a few people message us asking us, but they totally understood it when we said why, because it's like it's a movie you can't.
Were you able to post any clips of the sermons from those weeks?
We weren't. So that was where we had to kind of get creative. So we tried to think of ways that we could kind of connect with the church. And I think that's...
Because that's typically what you do sometimes. You'll take a minute or 30 seconds of what Kyle or Dave says from that week, and you'll post it.
Yeah. So we'll make a video. We'll make video content. We'll add some creative touch to it. But we couldn't do that with that, so we had to kind of look at it from a different angle and kind of think about what can we give them, what can we show people that isn't a clip, so to speak, but still kind of keep people engaged. And so, we took things that from the At the Movies series, and we tried to add fun things for them to be interactive with throughout the week, like community trivia and just like guess this character, so just stuff like that. So we tried to get creative with it, but it was the first time we did it at this church, and it's going to be really interesting to see what can happen in the future with it. So.
What kind of engagement have you seen, not just with social media, but maybe with the church overall, since Southeast has kind of engaged the frontier of social media?
Yeah, so our church is really unique. Very unique in a sense of our, should we say, age demographic. For a church our size, our average age I think is in the 40s, I think, somewhere around there. And so for a church our size, you have a spectrum that's teenagers all the way up to whatever age, and then you have all the way up to 80 or older. So you have a huge spectrum of age. And so what we do, our Facebook page will reach a different demographic than our Instagram. Our Instagram, with our average age on Instagram following, is probably in the 20s, maybe even lower 30s.
Yeah.
So there's content that we have to strategize. What's meaningful? Like, are we just putting content out to say, hey, we put something out today? Or are we putting content out to know that, hey, this is going to benefit somebody's walk with Jesus?
Yeah.
And so, there is going to be content that we push on Facebook that will reach certain age demographics to help reach that more strategically.
Do you ever do sponsored posts? Like you do like a targeted specific audience that you're trying to reach?
No, we don't do that. We try to veer from that. We try to, realistically just purely reach the congregation that we have, and honestly encourage. I think a church should never move out of the phase of encouraging disciples who make disciples.
Right.
And I think the more we put out towards our congregation, that gives them the opportunity to share with somebody else that they're discipling or that they know.
That's what you're putting your trust into.
Connects people.
Yeah.
And so, we don't want to put the connecting people of Jesus one another and connect them with a dollar.
Yeah.
We want to connect them with people. People are connecting people is what matters. And so we don't do it.
Okay. I almost feel like now I'm thinking about it, I feel like it could almost be taken the wrong way if somebody's like, I don't know, like if you got like a specific message or a verse or something on there, and then somebody is like a targeted audience for like getting that or something. It's like, I don't know, somewhere down the road, I feel like that could just potentially be like a rabbit hole of some kind. But
we do. We think very carefully about what we do and making sure that whatever we do, it's got to be so. We have to be so confident that it is gospel driven,
right,
that it removes that word.
Right.
And I think that if you really do that, I think if you there's some things that a church might do. People say, "You have to take a long time to do this." Like, you got to
put in some thought into it.
You got to put some thought. You have to put some prayer. You have to spend time. Jesus wasn't always in a hurry.
Right.
I mean, Jesus took time and prayed.
Right.
He took time and asked God, how are you going to speak into my life today for me to disciple these people? And I think that every church should treat that the same way. They shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, we're so #2018, let's do this now. Like, calm down, chill,
meditate,
think about it, and game plan. And when you truly have prayed about it and you're so confident in whatever strategic plan that you want to do, if it's truly gospel driven, then it's going to be useful.
Cool. What are some challenges or some negatives that you have to deal with on a regular basis?
Challenges. Wow. Well, I mean, I would say that these are good things.
Yeah.
I don't think that challenges are bad. I think that they're good. I've come into my role with certain weaknesses, and I've gotten very strong in those, and I'm getting stronger in those. I haven't reached the location yet. I haven't reached the destination. But I would say the challenge would just be, I pray to God a lot. I ask Him, please let me reach these people through authenticity and content, not through junk.
Yeah.
And I think a challenge sometimes I get creative block.
Yeah.
I do. There is X, and I need to connect it with Y.
Right.
And I think honestly, I have no idea how I'm going to do it. But then all of a sudden, at the simplest time, it just comes. I'm just like, I got it.
Yeah.
It comes to me, and it makes sense. And I think that can be a challenge. Often is we get in these ruts, and I think every creator will get in this rut. Mm-hmm. They always do, whether they're writing, whether they're illustrating, whatever they're creating, where they don't know what to do in a specific situation, but then
you almost feel so redundant you can't get out of that hole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that can be tough. It really can be. Communicating with multiple ministries, it's never easy. But Jesus never calls us into ministry. It's easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, and to clarify on that, maybe I should rephrase that. He doesn't call us into the life of ministry, not the career ministry. He doesn't call us into the life of ministry. Yeah. And for it to be easy. I think you can do ministry anywhere you are. Right. Whether you're working in a cubicle, whether you're a construction worker, or you're a lawyer, or whoever you are, I think that you can be used to spread the gospel. And
I literally say that all the time.
Yeah.
And it's with people like, if somebody's like, well, I don't know if I'm supposed to work in the church, or I don't know if I'm supposed to do missions. I'm like, well, listen, you've been given a set of gifts and passions that are specific to you. Mm-hmm. What you need to do is you need to find out what those are, and you need to find out how you can form an outlet of ministry with those. Mm-hmm. If it calls you to be a dentist, but be a light in that place where you are. If it calls you to be an accountant, I mean, crunch numbers, but then be a light where you are. So, the things that you've done in your life, you're very technologically savvy. You love taking photos. I've watched you grow your social media with great photography over time. And it's eventually plopped you into this position where you are using a very artistic approach with social media to connect people with Jesus in just a captivating way. And that's the point, It's like Kyle and Dave, they're good at talking. Matt Bayless, he's good at singing. Other people, Stephen Costas? Estes? Yeah. Yeah, he's great at photography as well. That's amazing. And then it's just, that's what it is. It's finding your gifts and your passions and formulating it into a certain outlet of ministry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, big time. And I think what a lot of people find, at least this is the same rut I found myself in, is when they pursue a life following Jesus, they get trapped into the mindset of the numbers.
Yeah.
Right. So, how many people am I connected with? How many people is? How many people that?
It almost becomes a checklist.
It almost becomes a checklist, and the biggest thing, and this is one of the things I love about kind of the direction we're going, is we stop, we slow down, and we just look. How intentional are we being? So if we have an event at our church, okay, that's great. Mm-hmm. How is that event being used to connect people with Jesus? Connect people with the church. If we're doing anything, that's one of the first things we think about. Any mega church can conjure up the resources to throw on some big event. Everybody has fun one day, and then all of a sudden the next day they wonder why they did that. Yeah, it's about how are we able to use that to connect people? And Jesus, this is one of the things I love about Jesus the most is he didn't look at numbers. Right. He didn't have, hey guys, 6,000 people today. Yeah. How do you like that? It's like, no, that's not. He spent intentional time with 12 disciples. Yeah. And if that's, to me, in my, the way I see it is if one thing goes out on social media and it only impacts one person, it's 100% worth it.
Yeah.
110% worth it.
Do you feel like though with the megachurch that's a thing that y'all have to come across a lot is intentionality? Like sometimes people get lost in the crowd and you have to you be careful about making sure that like people are getting attention almost like this.
We have a team of people whose goal, whose focus is connecting new people in the church. And I meet a lot. We have people who I work with who look for people who have amazing stories, who maybe might be new to the church, maybe a week, maybe a day, who knows? And they have this incredible story that they want to tell about how they came to Christ and how they found their home in Southeast. And so I talk to new people at the church, people who are brand new to the church all the time. Yeah. And so it's important to us. Every single soul that walks in those doors are so important to us. Not because we want them to be a member. If they come to Southeast and they end up going to another church, great. Yeah. Just follow Jesus with all your heart and soul, and pursue a life following Him. And if Southeast is your home, great. We have plenty of places for you to be involved. We have plenty of places for you, plenty of people for you to engage with. Yeah. But that's something that we're always thinking about is new people. How are we able to connect with them? Yeah. You're not just a number. You're not just a volunteer or something. You're a human being that we want to invest in, grow.
That's encouraging to like hear you say that, especially someone who works in that church, because more often than not you hear a lot of people on the outside of it saying like, I feel like that there would be no way that I could go in there and like find a home because it's like a mini mall or something, or people call it Six Flags over Jesus. Like it's
I like theme parks. That's good.
Yeah, no, but it's like that's what they compare it to. They compare it to a giant theme park full of a bunch of different rides to where nobody would even notice if they were there. But to hear somebody in that church, say that y'all are making a constant effort to make sure that demon of unintentionality is not present there, that you guys are making sure that everybody is welcomed and understands that they have a home and an opportunity there. It's an encouraging thing to say.
Yeah, and I think and here's the thing: people who say those things, I get it. Yeah, like I get it. Again, if I'm putting myself in the mindset, I've never been to church. I've heard of this Jesus dude before. Never really cared to know anything about him. And somebody invites me to Southeast, and I pull into that parking lot. Like I get it, but our goal is, to meet you where you are. Jesus calls us to meet people where they are. He doesn't ask you to get your stuff together and then come to him when you're all packed up and ready. He just whatever mess you have, cool, bring it with you. Yeah. And that's something that we have to communicate to people who don't go to Southeast, who happen to stumble across our post, is we really do mean it. Yeah. There's no comma. There's a period. We really do mean it when we say we don't care who you are. Right. We really do mean that. Like I know some people like say that, they're kind of like, comma there. No. Like seriously, like whatever you got, like come and we'll connect you. And I think that's so important. And honestly, it was really encouraging to me because I started like a day. Maybe 2 days before one of the biggest events we had in the whole year.
What was it?
Celebrate Christmas together. And it was an incredible event. I think we estimated it had 35,000 people that came to this thing. And
good grief.
Yeah, and we had it was an amazing event because the sole purpose of it was to connect people with the church. Right. And it was really cool. We heard stories. You can't make this stuff up. Like the story, there were people that were coming left and right with just unbelievable testimony. It was really encouraging to me as I came out. I walked out of the sanctuary. They had this little thing they did during the event in the sanctuary. I walked out of the sanctuary. I was in the atrium, which is basically the gathering place right outside the sanctuary.
Absolutely huge.
It's massive. Yeah, it's great. But it's great because the bigger it is, the more people get to gather. It's
exactly.
But I'm standing there and I look to my left. And I see Dave right there, just talking, to member of the congregation.
Yeah.
And like that's the senior pastor talking with, it's easy for them to, if I go out there, people are gonna want to talk to me and stuff.
Yeah.
But they love people.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we have Blaine and Baker is our biggest campus. We have satellite campuses as well, and I love those as well because they.
Do you know how many satellite campuses?
So we have 6 campuses total
across
the whole spectrum.
Okay.
So we have one in Indiana, Southwest Indiana, Crestwood, Oldham County, LaGrange, Oldham County, and then Elizabethtown and Blaine.
Okay, cool.
So and what I love about each of those campuses is each campus, they're in their different areas of town, and so you have such a unique culture at each one.
Yeah.
And the people there are incredible. I've been to every campus, and it's just like, wow.
I haven't had a chance to go to every campus yet.
Yeah, it's great. And what's cool is some campuses they kind of give you that like cool small town church kind of feel.
Yeah.
You walk in and it's nice and it's very intimate.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make one campus better than the other. It just means that each one has different things to bring to the table.
They've got their own style.
They got their own, yeah. And but we're all under the same church banner. We're all one church. We're not 6 separate churches under the South. We're one church. We're southeast, but we're just putting ourselves in different areas of town to better reach those communities.
Yeah.
If we didn't have satellite campuses, we can't reach Crestwood as good as we can without having a Crestwood campus.
Yeah.
And so that's just an example, and it's been pretty cool to see that happen. Being able to oversee some of the social media aspects, they have their own people to connect with in those areas. It's incredible. It's really cool.
Well, let's switch gears for a minute and talk about, since you were talking about where the church wants to meet people where they are and everything. Let's talk about where Jesus met you, where you were, because I know you, and I knew that you didn't grow up you grew up Catholic, right?
Yeah.
But some things changed for you over time, and your faith has grown, and things have just been different. Can you just list off, or not even list off, just talk about kind of your journey with Jesus?
Yeah, definitely. I grew up in an amazing family. I loved my family to death. My mom and dad were incredible. They are incredible. And they raised me. They gave me amazing opportunities, and they raised me with amazing work ethic, and they taught me just things that I could never really thank them for.
Yeah.
Enough. I grew up Catholic. That's correct. I grew up in a Catholic church. Amazing people too. They're great people. I met some awesome people. But my whole life, for a while, I went to an all-boys Catholic school here in New Orleans, Trinity, Go Rocks, Take State.
There you go.
I had some amazing teachers there. It was an amazing school, and truly made a man out of me. I mean, seriously, a boy went into Trinity, a man came out. I mean, that's no lie.
Yeah.
But I never truly knew what it meant to have a relationship with Jesus. Like I get it, like God. Okay, cool. God existed. I grew up. I had I took religion classes, Old Testament, New Testament, morality, all of these classes. I could tell you the order of the Old Testament books. I mean, shoot, at one point I probably could have told you the lineage of Leviticus. Who knows? I don't know. Yeah. That's a joke. There's no way. I don't think anybody can do that. But I never really truly knew what it meant to have a relationship with Jesus. And when I graduated high school, we every year the seniors at Trinity they have a senior retreat.
Yeah.
And I think they go to St. Gosh, I can't remember the location's name. I think it's like St. Francis something. Anyway, it's a really nice place in the woods with the lake. It's pretty cool. So we went there.
Like a camp?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's about 3 days long.
Okay.
And we went there, and it was very impactful. It was very impactful.
Yeah.
And after coming out of that, I was like, okay, like, God exists.
So that was kind of like the turning point for you almost.
Well, that wasn't a turning point. It led up to it. So
Okay.
that was like, I knew that God existed. Done. Okay, I get it. But right after that, and this is kind of spine-chilling to me whenever I talk about this, because it proves to me that God was truly pursuing me.
Yeah, get it out there, man.
And so I get connected with a group of people into my right after my freshman year of college, and I go to a leadership down in Tennessee and kind of listen to somebody give their testimony, and right there, like I just knew it, like Jesus wants a relationship with us. Like I never really got that. Like I never knew. Like, so many people, like my whole life, I always kind of thought like, you know, if I was a good person, like if I you know, helped people out, you know, if I didn't kill anyone, you know, if I didn't do bad things and I did a lot of good things, then I kind of like, I get there and I kind of get to the point where I get to heaven and all that. And like, all of a sudden, like I don't want to call it the Holy Spirit, call it just Jesus, whatever.
Right.
I just got it. I can't do enough of the right things to somehow earn an infinite God's love. Like none of us can. And that's great because all we have to do is receive it. Like He's got all the love in the world for us. And all we have to do is receive it. And that doesn't matter where we are in life, what sin we've committed, what we've done, literally it doesn't matter. If you fill in the blank, put whatever you want there, it doesn't matter. He loves you. You have to receive that. When you receive that, when you receive love, you receive Jesus. Jesus is love, and we make Him our Lord and Savior. And that changes everything. And for me, you know, at first it was like seriously emotional. I was like, mess. I was like holy smokes. Like, I mean, wow. Like my whole life, you know, I knew religion my whole life.
Right.
Religion, I got religion.
I feel like everybody like knows religion.
Yeah,
right?
Religion's not hard to get at all.
Yeah.
But Jesus didn't come here for religion.
Right.
He didn't come here for you to somehow have more accolades.
Yeah.
He came here for your heart. He wants your heart.
Yep.
He wants you. He wants you as you are. He loves you. And I think that's so encouraging to me. And honestly, I think things didn't really change. I didn't start actually pursuing my relationship with Jesus seriously. I mean, on a serious level. Man, honestly, man, it was probably right at the end of like 2015.
Yeah.
Not too far away.
Yeah.
You know, back in 2011 to 2015, of course, I told you I love Jesus.
Yeah.
But I didn't fully go all in. It actually like
that's kind of the way I was too, and it was like I think just like with college and everything, like you know, you had the chance to be your own person. You get out of whatever bubble that you grew up in, because everyone grows up in a bubble of some kind, right? It's the only community that they know. But when they go to college, when they leave the home, they encounter more than just their own community. And I think, and I know what you mean by what you're saying there, for me, at least, I had to get my butt kicked to kind of like remember where I came from.
Don't we all do?
It was just one of those things. So like when you said like you grew up knowing religion, I bet you definitely had some religion classes at Trinity.
Oh yeah.
I went to Christian Academy and we studied like world religions, but you know we had Bible class like every year and stuff. I had like the privilege to learn a great deal more than most people get the opportunity to, just because it's not in the public school curriculum to go into those things. But I knew the answers, right? Yeah. I knew, but then it was like it was one of those things where I had like these tools, but I didn't know like what to use them for, or like these gifts, or like these opportunities, and it was like I kind of had to visit this end of the spectrum to realize I was like, holy cow, it all makes sense almost. Like I know that I could not go on without this, and it was something that like I immediately clinged to like oxygen, and it was just one of those insanely like spine-tingling revelations, where it was like, wow, this is more than just like do's and don'ts. Like this is this is a love letter.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming at you to say, like, listen, this is not a checklist. This is not a do or don't thing. This is not a moral code. This is me telling you that there are things in this world, in this universe, that are going to happen that are not going to be in your favor. They're going to hurt. They're going to be negative. They're going to bring you down. They're going to bring somebody else down. People are going to cry. People are going to ask questions. Why? Why does this have to happen? Why here? Why me? Why now? And I'm here to tell you that there is, I want you to know that I'm above these things. And this is it right here. This is, if you can get my message, you have a place where you can anchor your joy and peace for the rest of your life, knowing that I will reconcile all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, I was in the middle of doing some garbage things in college when it clicked. Like or not even like clicked, but it was like one of those, like, it was like whatever I was in, it was low tide. And then it started to become high tide, and like these waves were like coming over me, and I was like, it was overwhelming almost.
Yeah, and it doesn't make it easier. I think one of the most encouraging books in the Bible for me, the most encouraging love letters, is Philippians.
Dude, get out of here.
I know, man. And I know, like, you and I both, I know you and I both dived into that book for a long time.
Yes, dude.
Like, months. We dived into that book. But dude, I'm telling you, you just can't, like, that Paul's love letter to those people, in the midst of what he's going through, it is exactly how we need to modify.
So, along with that, I had Cameron on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
So, we wanted to talk about his favorite book of the Bible, which is Philippians.
Oh, boy.
We talked for 2 hours on here before we even got into Philippians, and we were only able to talk about it for 15 minutes. So, I mean, basically what's going to happen from there is I'm going to be going and visiting him again, and we're going to do like a whole series on Philippians. Because you're absolutely right. You know, I mean, it's one of your favorite books, but it's like, it's
unreal.
It's one of the best love letters that Paul wrote that, gives us this look that we haven't had the chance to experience yet.
Well, I had a gut check about a week ago.
Yeah.
A week and a half ago. One of the men that I really look up to at church, he's been going through the book Philippians with me again.
Okay.
And he told me something that really, it got me. He said our lives are so out of order sometimes because our loves are out of order.
Jeez.
And when he said that, I was like, man,
yeah,
that applies to social media, or like what I do for the church, or like people's lives in general.
Yeah.
And it's, when I heard that, I was just like, man, that is literally, you can't be more true.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately people spend so much time, and they look at all the little tiny rules, similar to how the Old Testament life. In the Old Testament, how many laws did they have to obey? 400?
613 laws.
613 laws. You can't. Ain't no one gonna do that right.
One of the laws was you can't wear more than one type of fabric, right? Mm-hmm. It's like polyester and cotton. Mm-hmm. You're sinning.
Mm-hmm. And it's just things like that. People spend so much time. I just got to do this right, or I just got to get here, and it's like Jesus literally came and washed all that away and said, "Y'all, I'm here. Mm-hmm. I'm not just some dude who's some fictitious character. He's as real could get. And I think ultimately people encounter him eventually.
Right.
Everyone does.
Yes. I believe that too.
Some collisions are more beautiful than others.
Yeah.
Maybe in a sense of when you collide with them.
Right.
But when I think about when it finally happens and you receive that grace, you can't. There's no definition of grace that will ever do justice.
Yeah.
You can't define grace. Like people try and you could spend hours and hours. You could spend multiple episodes of podcasts talking about grace, but ultimately you have to experience it.
The only thing that you can do is give it certain characteristics, forgiveness, compassion, but it barely scratches the surface. It's just Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I know what you mean, man. But it's one of those things to me where, like, and you're right, I do believe that a bunch of people, like, obviously encounter Jesus, like, at one point in their life or another, and sometimes, like, it can be tough. Sometimes it's an overwhelming feeling of joy, like what you experienced or what I experienced. But, hey, talk about whatever you want to talk about for a minute, and I'm going to rip my siblings a new one real quick.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Well,
I'll be right back. I'm going to... I'll just be right back.
well, anyway, no, but I think Drew makes a really good point. I think ultimately, we can't do enough of the right things to earn God's love. And I think that no matter where you are, regardless of what you're going through in life, Jesus wants to meet you where you are. And a lot of people think that, well, I'm an exception, or what I'm going through, you just don't understand. But He has an unfathomable love for you, and I think that when you receive that love, seriously, it can and will change your life. One of the things that I actually love about who Jesus is when you look at who Jesus is and what every other religion is out there. However many there are, they all have a set of criteria you have to meet.
Right.
They all have a set of rules that you have to accomplish.
Yeah.
And Jesus is literally the only thing that just asks you to receive it.
Yeah. One of my things, and by the way, thanks for not letting it be dead air for a few minutes.
Hey, we talk about Jesus. It's kind of hard for you to have dead air.
Exactly. It is what it is. But I was talking about that the other day, as far as like people taking up different lifestyles like Buddhism or Hinduism or something like that, and it's always like this lifestyle like checklist or whatnot that people will constantly fall short of, and it's like one of those things where it's like, I'm not saying like don't live like this lifestyle like where you're constantly generous to people, like that's wonderful, but like listen, if you're doing that because you're like you see yourself as like not good enough, or like you see yourself as like a terrible person or something like that, this what you would call a religion, what we call love, is extended to us, like you just said, freely. But it's one of those things where Jesus doesn't enter your life so that you can begin a checklist to make yourself better. Jesus enters your life so that literally your heart and soul begins to change its nature in a very positive way. Sometimes it challenges you, but it never destroys the beautiful parts about you. It doesn't he doesn't call you to put certain things away, to say like, all right, well you're not good enough here, so we're going to stop doing that. Basically what he's saying is, listen, I'm going to change your nature and your heart and soul to where like you're not following a checklist. It's simply what you do and who you are and like what you love being. So it's like when Jesus entered my life, like if Jesus hadn't entered my life, I wouldn't think about it this way, but I'd be living such a selfish lifestyle in pursuit of like filling my needs or filling my happiness, and I would be constantly chasing happiness and comfort that would ultimately like just leave me just like wringing myself dry. And I didn't realize that like if I flipped it around and I looked at like the strengths that I have and even the weaknesses that I have, and I figure out how to use that to serve somebody else, how much more fulfilling that is. Like, and that's what you're doing with social media. Social media, there was this vision when it first got started, all the way back to like MySpace and Facebook.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't even call MySpace like social media, barely. Like it was like a weird page.
It was like a spoofed up chat room.
Right, exactly. But it's like when Facebook started and when Instagram came along and then Twitter and Snapchat, what happened was that we had, like as far as humanity goes, we had this beautiful vision that what it was going to do is that it was going to connect us in a very beautiful, positive way. We get to share memories. We get to let people know how we're doing. We get to update people on our lives, and people get to let us know how happy they are for us and everything. But what happened was that we slipped down this dangerous rabbit hole to where it began to consume us. It was a resume of not just like what we were up to, but it's like our value. And we put our value on the internet, and we let people judge. And that was our pursuit of happiness. Some people are successful at it. Some people have millions of followers, and what they do is that they wear like these amazing outfits or these very revealing outfits, or they're doing some insane thing. They're flexing on Instagram. They're flipping money around, and people are applauding them for it.
I mean, it's truly like it reminds you of like a paganistic world.
It is,
and
it's worship.
Yeah, it is, and I think one of the worst places you can get is when you're taking social media and you're using it to basically be your image.
Right.
And you're using it to be your identity. Your identity is not in social media. Your identity is in Jesus Christ. But once people are going to be on social media, they'll post pictures of their kids or that thing they ate for lunch or whatever.
Right.
We're at least going to meet them where they are. But I think a dangerous place to be, though, really is that place where you start making social media part of who you are. And there's this quote. I think it's by John Piper, and he said one of the greatest uses of social media is that in the last days, prayerlessness was not a result of lack of time.
Jeez.
And that right there really made me think, because I'm thinking, how are you using social media?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so you have personal social media. Great.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's it being used? Like, is it inspiring? Is it encouraging?
Are you just trying to capture memories?
Yeah, are you trying to capture memories? Are you using it as like a portfolio, or are you using it as something to convey a fake identity?
Are you using it to seek approval from other people?
Yeah.
Using the amount of likes that you get as social currency.
Yeah, literally. Social, it truly is. And I'm telling you, I have the amazing privilege of leading a group with a high school ministry.
Yeah.
And these kids, they have it.
That's
so much worse than me. I mean, I can't.
We were barely. We were like the beginning of it.
We were, and back when when I was in high school, you had a Facebook. You were basically under the age of like 30. Like your parents, like my parents. I remember when my mom made a Facebook. I think it was 2011, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
And I laughed. I was like, I'll give it 11 minutes. Like we're not going to be on this thing for a while.
Right.
And Lord behold, that's like the main uses of social media now. I think more people actually 40 and up use Facebook now than people who are younger. People who are younger going to things like Snapchat and Instagram.
Because it's more simple, and it's more able to project like what you're wanting. Facebook, it's full of funny videos or ads or something.
Well, it's like the Walmart of social media.
Yes.
It's got a ton of stuff.
Yes.
A lot of the stuff you might be interested in, but you actually really care about the little amount of things that you actually see on your news. Or
solving political arguments like you were talking about.
Oh yeah, because those arguments totally solve the situation.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately these kids they their streaks on on Snapchat, their likes on Instagram.
Yeah.
Incredible, insane things. It is 100% social currency.
I remember the stresses that I had in middle school and in high school coming up. Like the things that I just kind of dealt with already. Like my parents were getting a divorce at that time, and that obviously sucked, but it was like, pretty much everybody was going through that, so you knew how to handle it, right? And then, relationships would fade in or fade out. Maybe I would take a girl to the movies, and then it didn't work out or something like that, and I felt bad about it for a week. I can't possibly imagine how much more amplified that is when these kids are on, these 7th graders, these 8th graders, people that are coming into their hormones.
Yeah.
Where
they're entering literally like their teenage.
Everything they feel is amplified simply by their chemicals. Mm-hmm. And then they have social media to make sure that it is in their face
all the time,
constantly. It doesn't even matter if they go home. There's not a space where they can get away from it because it's addicting.
Because when I was growing up, the big place for drama was always the cafeteria.
Yes.
That was it. Like when you go to the cafeteria, you see everybody, and that girl you asked out the other day, you said no, she's there.
Yep.
And that guy you got in a fight with the other day during football practice, he's also there.
Yep.
Everybody's in the same place. Now the cafeteria is in your bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
It is in the basement.
It's when you're in your car.
It's when your mom's taking home from school. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And these kids, like, we have to constantly tell these kids, like, look, regardless of what happens on social media, it isn't your identity. It never will be. I don't care if you are the hottest thing on this planet to all these kids or whatever. Yeah. You're not. Your identity is not found in that. And while social media can be used to grow, to spread the gospel, it can be used for the kingdom. It's like money. Yeah. Money can be used for incredible things. Yeah. Money can be used for also bad things. Yeah. How you use it.
Money is amoral.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And how you use it dictates the impressions.
I would almost say that the social media platforms are amoral as well, but. And I wanted to kind of ask you your opinion about this. There are some things going on with Facebook and Instagram and even Twitter to where I am starting to think it's not so amoral anymore. And I'm kind of wondering when it is going to start to affect our community, as far as the Christian community. There's a lot of things that are going on now where I see like Twitter is removing accounts that are not following community guidelines, but people are kind of pointing out that it's not really just following their political agenda of some kind. Instagram does the same thing. Facebook doesn't really do that. You can kind of just do whatever the heck you want on Facebook, but it's like when you post something or you tweet something, who was it? Let's say like Roseanne Barr. Okay, so she had that TV show. She was restarting her show, and she had some inappropriate tweets. They were racist tweets, right? To my knowledge, her and then other people who have been in that situation have had their accounts deleted and basically have been removed from having a voice, right? And that's starting to become a freedom of speech issue, almost. Right. I want to know, at least in your eyes, if you ever think about this, do you ever see a point in the future where an institution like the Evangelistic American Church would ever be susceptible to being hindered by social media's community guidelines or their political views whatsoever?
Well, I can say I don't foresee Christian life being easier.
Right.
Now, does that mean that your life's going to be miserable? Absolutely not. But does that mean that you're going to have obstacles when it comes to spreading the gospel and telling people who Jesus is? Absolutely. It's going to be tough sometimes. But one thing is for certain. For the last 2,018 years, people have tried. They've done everything they can. They have burned books. They have burned libraries. They have burned towns. They have burned millions of people to prevent the name of Jesus
and the spreading of the gospel.
And not once is it worked.
There you go.
And you know what? Here's the thing. I'm not a big. I don't get big into politics, and I think I'm a firm believer. Poly is the Greek word for many. Takes with bloodsuckers. You do the math. There you go.
Oh my gosh.
I don't dive too far into it because ultimately, whether you're Republican, Jesus doesn't love only Republicans. He doesn't only love Democrats. He loves everyone, and he calls you, regardless of which political affiliation you have, to love him and pursue him. Your identity is in him, not a political party. Moving on. So
there you go.
Ultimately, I think that Jesus is freedom.
Yeah,
he is. When you live in that, his words are going to spread.
Yeah,
it's contagious. If you look at how Peter lived. Peter, in a span of 2 weeks, the guy went from denying Jesus to being so drenched by the Holy Spirit, he healed a lame person.
Yeah.
So if that's what Jesus has, And then I look at some laws that prevent a post from being shared.
Yeah.
That's got nothing.
Yeah.
Literally not. It's literally leaves in the wind compared to the Holy Spirit.
There you go.
And so that's something I have to remind myself of, is these things aren't urban legends.
Yeah.
They're not myths. They're not something that some guy said that he heard from his best friend down the street, who his father's niece's uncle's twice removed cat's best friend told him in college. Like, no, this is stuff that happened.
Yeah.
It's stuff that is real. It's as real as the fact that George Washington lived.
Yeah.
These people aren't myths.
Yeah.
And if that can happen, and if all the stuff that has happened to Christ followers in 2018 years has happened,
yeah,
and he's still going strong, I'm not worried about it. God has never woken up and said, shoot, I don't know what to do. I didn't see this coming.
Right.
Like, guys, do you have any ideas? I don't know. Do you? No? No, that's never happened, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's why I tell people, your faith is not placed in who's president.
Yeah.
Your faith is not placed in what laws are passed. Are those important? Yes.
Yeah.
Your faith is put in Jesus. Your identity is in Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's why at the end of the day, this isn't just like a slang term. It truly is all good.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good. Now,
There you go.
and that makes things, the Great Commission more important.
Yeah.
And the world's not going to offer that.
Yeah.
The world's not going to offer you that kind of peace and that kind of power.
Yeah.
In terms of who God is. I mean, He's huge. He is as big can get. It's bigger than what we can conceive. When I was in college, my official track, if you will, was physics with a minor in math, and so I always tell people I was kind of picked up and plopped into a bucket of atheists.
Right.
That's basically it.
Yeah.
I love them.
And you did speed school too, right?
Yeah, when we were in it, we weren't the physics part of U of L was detached from the speed school, in terms of the pool of funding. Okay. So we don't have to compete with that funding. Okay. But we were in that same buildings and stuff like that. Cool. So it was kind of weird actually. Okay. Cool. But love all those guys to death, guys and girls. But ultimately, there's some very, 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 very smart people at that school. And space, all of that existence is huge. It is big, and we will never fully comprehend it. Because if we could fit an infinite God in our 3.5-pound brain, we would be worshiping. Right. And if there's one thing that I've noticed is that He's never fallen back on His word. In the midst of all the chaos, in the midst of all the things that I've ever screwed up on, in the midst of how much I've literally sinned daily, He still has not been bad. He still has not fallen back on His word. And so I don't really get worried about regulations when I think about a God like that. Okay. And so I think they're important though. That does, in no way does that somehow take away from the importance of laws that are passed, and things of that nature. I think you need to stand for what is right. I think there's a big sin is the sin of nothing. It's the sin of doing nothing. It's the sin of standing by and literally doing nothing. Kyle even talked about that this past weekend. When Eve ate the apple, well, Eve ate the apple, but what did Adam do? Nothing. He just stood there and watched. Right. While Satan lied to her about who God is. His wife, he literally lied to his wife. And he stood there and did nothing. So, technically, the first fall of man, the first sin of man, nothing. The sin of passivity. Jeez. And so, I think that it's always important to keep that in mind and to do something. But as long as that something is gospel-driven, look out, world, because we're not going anywhere. No, and it's not. In fact, Christianity is even proven. The more you suppress it, the more you press down on it, the more you try to prevent, the more God just sort of laughs and just says, "Nope, it's not happening. It's not." And so, cool. Cool.
Well, all right, I'm gonna get into some rapid fire questions here real quick. I always do this. So, let's start out with what's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie?
Saving Private Ryan. Yeah. All right, good enough for me.
Man.
Fantastic. What's your favorite music? Or favorite band?
Folk.
Okay.
If I had to pick a favorite band,
Or artist?
We'll do Coldplay for right
Okay.
now. I think I have it's a tie between a lot of them, but
Okay.
I like. There's an artist called his name's Tyson Matzenbacher. It's really good.
Mm.
Coldplay is good. Yeah, oh gosh, I'm so all of it. As music, it's kind of hysterical.
I mean, I'm the same way. I love, like, Chris Stapleton is, like, a for sure go-to for me. I like Chris Stapleton, Sturgill Simpson, and then I like folk music, like you were talking about, like John Prine.
Yeah, I like Luke Bryan's a big one. I love Luke Bryan.
You want to know something sick about John Prine?
What?
You know that song Paradise? You know, he's like Daddy, won't you take me back to Muhlenberg?
Oh yeah.
So that's a real place, right?
Yeah.
That's here in Kentucky,
Wait, for real?
and I drove through it while I was listening to that song. It was really weird because I was driving, I was listening to that song, and it was like, Daddy, won't you take me down to Muhlenberg? And it was saying, now entering Muhlenberg County. And I drove over this bridge down by the Green River, and it was saying, driving over Green River. And I was like, no way. But that was like one of the coolest things ever for me.
You couldn't do that again if you tried.
Exactly. But, all right, so also, what's your favorite book besides the Bible?
The Quartet.
Quartet?
Yeah.
What's it
So
about?
the book is about George Washington, John Jay, Alexander Hamilton, and Thomas Jefferson. It's basically how they stitched the country back together post-American Revolution and pre-constitutional politics.
Okay.
It's the best demonstration of pure leadership that I've seen in a very long time. It gets in depth. It takes basically a mix of all four of their autobiographies and it pieces it together and shows how they prevented the colonies from going to war with each other during perhaps one of the greatest revolutions in the history of mankind. And it is pretty incredible. I loved it. I'm a history guy.
Cool.
So besides the Bible, if you were to put that as a default,
Right.
I would say the Quartet's really good.
Cool. All right. Do you believe in aliens? Are we alone in this universe?
Probably not.
Yeah.
But, I mean, hey, it's a big place.
Right.
We live in a galaxy that spans 100,000 light years across, 50,000 light years, or 10,000 light years thick, 200 billion stars. That galaxy is one of 115 billion registered galaxies in a universe that we've only seen less than 1% of. So if you really do the math...
My brain just like threw up when you said
that. So
that.
if you do the math, you do about 115 billion times 100 and a little more than 100, and that's probably the estimate number of galaxies in the universe.
Yeah.
And then you take that many galaxies and you multiply that number times, say the average galaxy is the size of our own, 250 billion. Some galaxies are 3 times bigger than ours. That's how many stars you have. I would say that the odds of us being by ourselves are pretty small, but if anything, that just proves how big God is.
Yeah.
I think that people kind of get the wrong perspective when they start thinking that if there's something else out there that somehow disproves God, it does not.
No.
I just think that the universe in and of itself is it's a big old biosphere.
Yeah.
With dead areas and places that are thriving. So,
right.
One thing I do know is for sure, we've looked at a lot of space, haven't found anything. Yeah. And our solar system is very unique. Out of all the planets, they all carry their own characteristics, and then we have our own little blue dot. It's placed just the right distance at 93 million miles away from the sun. Yeah. Just too far away to where we don't freeze to death, and just too close to where we don't get fizzled by a solar flare. Exactly. Flying at us at the speed of light. Things like that. I think it's encouraging, to know that we're good to go. And then we somehow, by the way, have one moon, which is extremely rare, by the way. It's kind of crazy, the fact that we only have one moon. And then we have just the right magnetic sphere that goes around that moon and bulges towards the sun to prevent the solar flares from killing it. I think that everything that happens to be the way it is too much of a quote-unquote coincidence. You know what? Now that I have you here, and I know how much of a fan of Elon Musk you are. Oh, my man. All right, you know about his theory? Which one? Okay, he thinks that we're in a simulation. Oh, boy. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? No, we're not in a simulation.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily like.
What would you, if you had the opportunity to hang out with him or even do a podcast with him, like what would you say about like that theory?
Well, if I had to say about it, well, I mean, there's a prerequisite to that, and I want to get to know the guy first.
Right.
But
you have enough time to fanboy out and everything. Get an
fanboy out and tell him how much, dude, your Model 3 is great. You want to slide one to your brother here. Here's the thing. We spend so much time trying to fit the universe in our head.
Yeah.
And I'm totally cool with knowing that I'll never know everything.
Right.
I'm totally cool with that. I'm totally cool with knowing that the human race will never know everything.
Right.
But ultimately, Jesus didn't come here to save you from a simulation.
Yeah.
From a program.
Right.
We have a life. We'll live it. We were born. We're going to die. And those are just two facts. Birth, death, and taxes. Those are like 3 guarantees if you're going to live your life here on Earth.
Yeah.
But from a scientific standpoint, gosh, that could go down a rabbit hole of so many things. But ultimately, I think that's a pretty cool opportunity to talk about Jesus. I think a lot of people get these pointless debates about, whatever, science versus, you have people out there who think the Earth's 6,000 years old. You have people out there who think the Earth's 5 billion years old. You have people out there who believe that everything's random. People out there who don't. I think that those debates get real pointless when you completely miss the fact that it's an opportunity to talk about Jesus.
Well, think about how much we still don't know, and yet we're acting like that. It's surefire, like a billion years old. It wasn't until the 1990s that people had determined by what science they knew that it was 4 billion years old. Yeah. All up until then, they thought it was millions of years old.
Here's the thing: I can't even fathom what time is to an infinite God.
Right.
I really can't.
Right.
I know He created the heavens and the earth. The mechanics behind how He did it is another story.
Exactly.
And I actually threw this twist at somebody about 2 weeks ago. It was actually kind of an interesting conversation. So, God created man. He created Adam and Eve, right?
Yeah.
Adam and Eve weren't created as babies.
Right.
They were created at a fixed age, right?
Okay.
Whatever age that was. Obviously old enough to make decisions.
They were adults.
They were adults.
Right.
They could probably they were in that phase of life, whether it was 20, whether it was 30, whatever. So then He made them at a fixed age, right? Who's to say He didn't do that with the universe and just all of us?
There you go.
Checkmate. Both right.
Right.
So it can get. That's a whole other conversation, but But honestly, it's impossible. But that just goes to show you how God operates on His time is in His own process.
He doesn't have to answer for it either.
No, He doesn't have to answer the time.
Right.
And so if He doesn't have to answer the time, us trying to figure out who's right on each side, that's a waste of time.
Right.
It's
a waste of time.
And it's kind of silly. And and that's what I keep every time I hear about an atheist debating a Christian and talking about all this stuff all over the board, it's like, y'all, if God's infinite and He's above, if His thinking is higher than your thinking, what do you think the byproduct of that is?
Right.
You're not going to understand it.
Yeah.
And you're not going to understand everything, at least. Now, does that tell me that, is that saying that we can't figure some things out?
You can keep learning.
Yes.
But to think that you could completely unravel the entire complexity of the universe in your mind, to be able to contain that in your mind.
And here's the thing: I believe in the importance of science. I believe in the importance of pursuing understanding and the innovation that comes out.
It was one of the commandments that God gave us. He said, wait, hold on. He said, subdue the earth and multiply. Subdue the earth is essentially learn this creation. Learn how to be stewards of this creation. And that is science. He's saying, hey, learn this, then create something. Be fruitful.
Yep. And I think, ultimately, the tools that we're using to record this podcast right now, they're created as a result of science.
Exactly.
And so science isn't evil. It's not this evil thing.
Right.
It saved lives.
Yeah.
It creates the technology that gives us the ability to hop in a car and go to church.
Exactly.
And so it's you see that circle there.
Yeah.
I think, but ultimately, you can get into the details all day.
Right.
About simulations, about aliens, about all that stuff. The one thing I know for sure, there's a lot of maybes.
Right.
There's a lot of maybes. Science changes every day.
Exactly.
We could discover something tomorrow, and then everything changes in the scientific community.
Yep.
But one thing I know for sure, without a doubt in my mind, is that Jesus came, he lived, he died, he was buried, rose 3 days later, and over 1,500 people saw him accounted for.
There you go.
And that fact is enough to live by, and the rest is actually perfect.
Exactly.
It's just toppings. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Yeah,
I'm going to do some last little announcements here. Today's podcast was brought to you by Maple Morning Farms and the Crestwood Feed and Seed Depot. Maple Morning Farms is a community-supported agriculture, produce, and farm fresh eggs supplier. If you like to have fresh, locally grown, organic food in your fridge, Maple Morning Farms and the Crestwood Feed and Seed Depot are the place to get those sort of groceries. Also, the Crestwood Feed and Seed Depot is into lawn maintenance and lawn care. They have been in business for over 30 years and is ran by Kathy Reed and Steve Bowen. They present high-quality products and high-quality customer service. If you need any outdoor maintenance whatsoever, Crestwood Feed and Seed Depot is the place to go. Also, thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope that we are able to bring some value to your life and bring you a positive message about Southeast Christian Church and social media altogether, and just how people can use pretty much any platform to send out a positive message. Speaking of social media, if you want to engage with this podcast and you want to ask questions or figure out what else is next, you can reach me on my Instagram, which is George Shadburn, or my Twitter, which is also George Shadburn, or you can follow my Facebook page, which is also George Shadburn, or you can go to my website, which is georgeshadburn.com. I am open for questions. I'm open for feedback. If you have anybody that you feel like should be on this podcast that deserves an hour or two to talk about something special with their life, please send me a message and feel free to engage with me. Also, if you want to support the podcast in any way, there is a Patreon account that I have started where you can go and you can sign up to give a monthly donation of either $1, $5, or $10. And basically what your donation is going to go towards is basically helping out a ministry or a charity or some sort of cause that is represented on this podcast. So for instance, I have a friend, her name is Andrea Scott. She just started Up Louisville, which is a nonprofit that is designated for homeless women and children here in Louisville, Kentucky. That will be the first recipient of this month's Patreon account, and many more to come. And you will be able to see the way that your donations affect people in their lives, and I will post about that on social media as well. If you also want to help out this podcast, what you can do also is follow me on social media, and also subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, and also subscribe to my podcast on YouTube. You can find those by searching Life on a Mission and or George Shadburn. Thank you guys again so much. More to come. Blaine, once again, thank you for being on the podcast, man. I really appreciate it. And you guys have a wonderful day, and God bless.